Hello, this is Dr. Sheila Gallagher, one of the authors of the problem-based learning unit titled Hull House, Living Democracy in the Progressive Era. Hull House is published by Royal Fireworks Press as a part of an ongoing collaboration with the Advanced Academics Program in the Fairfax County Schools in Virginia. Dana Plowden, my co-author, was a middle school teacher in the Fairfax County Schools for many years. She is one of a team of Fairfax teachers and administrators who helped develop and pilot test this unit, including social studies teachers Jamie Sawatsky and Anna Slevin. This presentation will provide you with the highlights from Hull House and describe how the unit unfolds. Along the way, I'll pause to describe the lesson plans, activities, assessments, and rubrics you'll have at your disposal if you teach this unit. I'll also describe different supports that are included in the teacher manual so you can be successful teaching Hull House even if you're new to problem-based learning. Hull House introduces middle school students to the progressive era of American history, a time marked by the rapid influx of immigrants seeking a better life in the land of opportunity. The immigrant poor, often manipulated and mistreated by the powerful, found an authentic welcome to America in settlement houses, inner-city havens that provided education, support, and counsel. By far, the most influential settlement house was Chicago's Hull House, led by the tireless human rights advocate Jane Addams. During the course of the problem, students learn about the immigrant poor who lived around Hull House. They encounter historical figures. They delve deeply into primary resource documents that describe life in the tenements and see photographs that validate the words they read. They analyze political cartoons. If you want to add an interdisciplinary twist to the unit, you can introduce students to The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Throughout, students are asked to consider what it means to live life in accordance with the ideal of American democracy. All of this happens as students solve a problem that is characteristic of the progressive era and designed around the problem-based learning model. PBL, as created for medical schools, transforms the classroom into a content-rich, inquiry-based environment by initiating learning with an ill-structured problem, having students as a group grapple with the problem from the point of view of a specific stakeholder, and by changing the teacher role from lecturer to guide or coach. The ill-structured problem creates the scope and sequence of the unit, and the opening scenario introduces the problem. Of course, the ill-structured problem is really designed to lead students to a particular body of content, and the opening scenario is carefully written to be a catalyst, generating questions that are related to desired content objectives. As students explore the problem at the center of the unit, they move through 5 phases of problem solving, including problem engagement, inquiry and investigation, problem definition, problem resolution, and problem debriefing. As students follow this flow of the problem, they are drawn further into the story. A problem narrative is included in the teacher manual to give you a sense of how the story progresses ahead of time. This narrative can serve as a curriculum guide of sorts if you're new to PBL or if you're teaching the unit for the first time. If you're already familiar with PBL, use the narrative as a guiding framework that you can shape according to your students' questions or their learning needs. Let's go on and take a closer look at the 2-part opening scenario for Hull House. The first part of the opening scenario is designed to give students some general background on the progressive era. It begins when students receive a letter from Jane Addams. The letter is addressed to the Hull House Board of Directors, which students come to understand is their stakeholder role. Jane writes from New York City, where she's been attending some meetings. Jane encloses some amusing political cartoons with her letter, and she suggests that the muckrakers have much to say about the current conditions in American society. Students are provided with cartoon analysis guides to help draw meaning from the cartoons. 3 different forms are included in the unit, providing an early opportunity for differentiation. Just as they finish discussing the cartoons, students receive another communication from Jane, one that immerses them in the life of Hull House. This time the communication is a formal memo. In the memo, Jane Addams alerts students, in their role as Hull House Board of Directors, of an impending reduction in funding. Hugo Price, a prominent Chicago businessman, plans to remove his contribution to Hull House because of Jane Addams' involvement in the labor movement. She encloses his letter for them to read, and they see reference not only to the current incident, but also to the Haymarket riot. Jane Addams informs the board that they no longer have the money to fund all of the initiatives they had planned. Because of the reduced budget, they now have to choose which one of 5 projects will go forward. This is the heart of their problem. The novice board of directors don't know it yet, but the list of proposals will soon introduce them to other influential women who worked and lived at Hull House, including Florence Kelley, Julia Lathrop, Alice Hamilton, and Ellen Gates Starr. For now, students read the memo, the letter from Hugo Price, and the list of proposals. They then complete the Learning Issues Board, listing the information they know and questions they need to answer in order to understand the situation better. Students prioritize their questions, selecting the top 4 or 5 they need to answer first, and create a plan of action to find answers for those top priority questions. They are then ready for the next stage of PBL, inquiry and investigation. During inquiry and investigation, students search for answers to the questions they've listed on the Learning Issues Board. The Hull House Resource Book will give you and your students a leg up on their research efforts. The book contains a wealth of primary resource materials. There are background readings on the Progressive Era, articles written about Hull House, visual material including cartoons and photographs, and a variety of works written by the women of Hull House. All of the resource materials are also on the unit CD, so you can print and organize them in folders or leave them around the room for students to discover as they research. The Internet can also lead you to an abundance of additional primary resource materials on Hull House and the Progressive Era. We've culled through many of these and selected a set of our favorites, which are listed in the teacher manual. The new Common Core state standards encourage careful note-taking and citation. Hull House includes note pages that help students focus on finding information that is relevant to their learning issues questions. Students are also prompted to follow proper MLA citation style, so they are ready to provide Jane with evidence to support their decision. People sometimes think that students should be on their own during PBL because of the emphasis the model places on self-directed learning, but that's not quite right. It's more accurate to say that a goal of PBL is to set the stage for students to learn how to be self-directed learners. As a PBL teacher, your instruction is redirected towards providing students the skills and tools needed to work their way through the problem. It's as though you were the director of a play, sitting in the theater and providing guidance to your actors when needed. Embedded instruction is the term used in PBL for the moments when the problem-solving team needs some assistance from their director. Moments of embedded instruction usually provide important frames of reference for students to use when analyzing the problem, or provide pivotal learning experiences. For instance, a member of the Hull House Board of Directors would know about Hull House maps and papers, the groundbreaking census maps gathered by the women of Hull House by going door to door in the south side of Chicago, collecting information about ethnicity and income. Students use these maps to get to know their neighborhood. The Hull House Teacher Manual provides large segments of the maps and also smaller matched segments so that small groups can analyze different parts of the neighborhood. An excerpt from Hull House Maps and Papers helps the students interpret what they find. When their analysis is done, they can see patterns emerge. In other examples of embedded instruction, students learn the complex relationships among the social problems facing the immigrant poor. They learn how to consider cause-effect relationships and complex interactions as they try to find the root causes of the immigrants' dire conditions. Another frame of reference experts use when solving a problem is conceptual reasoning, seeing abstract or universal relationships at play in the problem. Part of the embedded instruction in Hull House involves teaching students that Hull House was guided by a philosophy, and that philosophy was based on a concept, democracy. Students are asked to consider the question, what does it mean to live democracy? Jane Addams' own words often prompt this reflection. The concept democracy also aligns with the National Council for Social Studies' organizing theme of civic ideals and practices. By the end of the unit, students should understand the generalizations on this slide that are associated with civic ideals and practice. Eventually, students understand the problem well enough that they are ready to create a specific definition of their problem. During this part of the unit, students are introduced to the criteria that experts use when deciding how to distribute scarce resources. These criteria are folded into a problem definition that acknowledges the issues that need attention and the real-world constraints that limit their solution options. Having reached a consensus on a clear problem definition, students are ready to consider different solutions. Students learn how to translate their problem definition into criteria that help them compare different solutions. The problem resolution grid helps ensure that students make a well-considered, defensible decision. Students announce their choice in an issue of the Hull House Bulletin, working together to create a printed newspaper or a bulletin board. Each student also writes an individual letter to Jane Addams defending the decision. That's one way the unit can go, but you can always shift the story of Hull House through the use of kickers or twists in the plot. They can be used to add new dimensions to the problem, to emphasize particular content, or to help students focus on the task at hand. Two kickers are included in the Hull House Teacher Manual. In one, students face an ethical dilemma, based on an actual event in the history of Hull House. They are offered more funding from a questionable source, and have to decide whether the good that could come from having the money is worth possibly tarnishing their reputation by accepting help from an undesirable source. In the second kicker, students receive another letter from Jane that introduces them to The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. Jane suggests that they use the newly published novel as the centerpiece of a salon-style reception that would introduce future funders to the projects students decided to support and to the other projects still in need of funding. Students then work in groups to create a display that represents the entirety of their work throughout the unit. Ideally, this kicker would end with a live presentation to adults playing the role of prospective funders. Once students present their solution, the story of the Hull House unit ends. But there's still one more stage to problem-based learning, problem debriefing. Research in PBL suggests that this stage helps solidify content knowledge as well as awareness of the problem-solving process. Problem debriefing can be approached in many different ways. Hull House contains two ideas. In one, students work with Hull House Firsts, a list of 25 innovations initiated by Hull House reformers. By grouping and regrouping the items on the list, students discover the conceptual themes underlying Hull House reforms. In the second option, students are introduced to the poem Let America Be America Again by Langston Hughes. They compare the social struggles of the Progressive Era with the struggles Langston Hughes describes in his poem just 25 years later, and discuss the ongoing journey of achieving an American democracy. Throughout the unit, students complete a variety of assessments, most of which are compiled in the student problem log. Special attention was paid to incorporate exercises that were relevant to the problem, yet still meet new Common Core requirements for writing and research, for analysis and reasoning, and for speaking and listening. Hull House includes materials that support your journey through the problem, too. In addition to the problem narrative, there is an alignment chart that shows where different skills and ideas appear in the unit, and sample 2- and 3-week schedules. In the back of the manual, you'll find 3 how-to essays that will help improve your skills as a PBL coach. Also in the back of the unit are a number of charts demonstrating the alignment of Hull House with National History and Social Studies standards, as well as with Common Core state standards for history and social studies. If you're interested in teaching Hull House, you should order the teacher manual, the student problem log, and the resource book with its accompanying CD. Another helpful book would be Problem-Based Learning in the Classroom, which is a practical guide on how to teach PBL units. If you're interested in widespread use of this or other PBL units in your school or district, hands-on workshops are available through Royal Fireworks Press. I hope you enjoyed this walk through Hull House. To see slideshows describing other PBL units in this series, please visit the Royal Fireworks Press website at www.rfwp.com. Thanks for listening.